Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games. Here we have Peter on what he is calling Weird Bug, so we'll see what's in this. With an Arkham's Astrolabe on the first turn, we are working through the last couple of weeks of Astrolabe, Oko, and Dreadhorde Arcanus, so if you haven't made your peace with them leaving the format, don't worry, there'll still be a few more chances for you to say goodbye, or just hate those cards if you are delighted to see them leaving. And we'll get to see just how impactful they are in some of these matchups. Give us some reference in the future when we're thinking back to just how good they were. Punishing Thieves. Probably going to have some outlandish plays possible. We'll see if he's running Notion Thief and Hull Breacher or Dak Faden. Both of these probably a fair thing to say that they are kind of brews. Both players looking to innovate, have some fun. And a Sylvan Library, and that type of card can do a ton of heavy lifting versus a lot of control decks, but versus something like Hull Breacher, oh my goodness, that is just a disaster. This could be really quite bad if Matt's able to get down one of his replacement effects, stopping Peter from drawing cards. At that point, you're just taking tons of damage from Sylvan if you activate it. If they respond by flashing in something gross. And a Force of Will defending. Matt fetching. It looks like the Force of Will has resolved, as well as the Thoughtseize. So Veil of Summer Blowout, not really here. A Ponder. That is a pretty scary thing when you throw a Force of Will into a potential green mana open right now. Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast, those were always enough of a problem, but now we've got that green Elemental Blast and Veil of Summer. That conveniently draws a card as well. Brainstorm for Peter. And I can't quite make out their life totals there on his dice. I'm sure both players able to keep the game state correct, but we may be a little bit in the dark in terms of the life totals. There's going to be incidental things like Thoughtseizes, Fetch Lands, Force of Wills. And I believe we just had a Green Sun Zenith finding Dryad Arbor there. Based off of the shuffling the card back in. Couldn't make it out from the glare. A lot of the time we can piece the puzzle together just based off of how things play out. Oh, Peter, first to get a clock on board. This Dryad Arbor could get in there. I have seen that be a strategy. Icefang Codal. Gonna draw a card. And what is this glared card? Nope, must be Euro. Land gets put in and it goes to the graveyard. Now Icefang is a long ways away from having Death Touch here. Baleful Strix is ready to take its place back as the mayor of Value Town. Icefang did have quite a run, but a lot of people are now looking at the black bluebird rather than blue-green, given there may not be as much incentive to run green now without Oko in the format. Though it's all very much to be determined. Things have a long way to go to get sorted out. Brainstorm. From Matt, looking to optimize. He's got the best combo in the game. Fetch land plus Brainstorm. Especially in these control matchups. I mean, I don't know what the optimal setting is for Brainstorm. I feel like the higher the power level of the format, the better Brainstorm ends up being. It also sets up significant risk-reward considerations. We've got a petty theft, getting force of willed. So a couple of forces out of Peter. Now this might be called weird because of Zur's weirding. That card's kind of a mess. Once it shows up, you kind of just take a look at the board state and figure out who's going to win. As you're able to use Zur's weirding to deny draws. And Euro's coming back. The very next day, 6-6. And Euro is kind of at the front of the queue in terms of being the target of ire for legacy players. He is incredibly difficult to deal with for fair decks. Always interesting to hear these 3-mana cards getting just a lot of attention and actually getting banned in the case of Oko. We still have show and tell. Don't tell anybody about that. Yeah, so Zur's weirding, if it does come up, if Peter's ahead on board and he manages to stick a Zur's weirding, players play with their hands revealed. If a player would draw a card, they reveal it instead. Then any other player may pay 2 life. If a player does, that card goes into the graveyard. Otherwise, that player draws a card. So in that situation, if you're ahead on board, you can just lock your opponent out of the game. Make sure that they don't draw into anything at all. It's a really unusual Magic card. Grove of the Burn Willows. Card that kind of syncs up with Punishing Fire to make Taiga kind of look bad. I'm not going to lie. You know, it's wild. For a while, Grove of the Burn Willows was worth about as much as a Taiga. I am highly skeptical that that is the case at this point. I'm going to go ahead and check. Well, just how large the gulf is. I mean, I'm imagining it is comically large. I believe Grove is bottomed out and Taiga is at an all-time high. Oko showing up. And this is somewhat standard operating procedure for this meta. Got a Euro, got an Oko. Things are going pretty well for Peter here. Ah, yes. Grove of the Burn Willows can be had for $3.50, whereas Taiga mint ones are probably $5.50. So that is comical. I remember many years ago being set up at Scholars Games in Brockton, Mass. Friday night, laying out all the little piles of dual lands. Piles not as large as they are now. Thankfully, they've grown over the years. Despite selling lots and lots of duels, I've been able to buy more than I've been selling. And Grove of the Burn Willows at one point was approaching. And yeah, that is no longer the case. Hollowed Fountain Foil from Dissension was worth more than a Taiga more than a Tundra for a little while too. So we got Abrupt Decay clearing out the Ice Fang Codal. And yeah, this is feeling like we may have a bit more asides throughout the course of this. We've got a 4 casting cost card. Is it Zura's Weirding? I cannot tell. We've got some glare on it. That is a white square at this point. It may not matter. Oh, and Matt agrees. I was just going to say, like, Peter could be playing Pokemon cards at this point. I think he can take it down with just the Oko and the Euro. There's just not a whole lot that's going to be going Matt's way from there. Euro just brings some serious beef. It's wild to me that he only unearths for 4. Not unearth, escape. Yeah, the escape cost at 4 doesn't even really, like, feel normal. Like, Titans or Giants cost like 6 mana. Like Sun Titan, Inferno Titan, Grave Titan. You know, nobody really cares about Frost Titan, but, you know, Primeval Titan. That whole cycle, iconic, playable, 6 casting costs for a 6/6 body. And yeah, they just opted to make Euro cost 4 to escape, which, you know, I think he'd actually be totally fine at 6. That's the crazy thing. That is, I mean, it probably would not be much of a problem for control. I don't know, maybe it would cut back on the number of them that you play, but at 4 mana, he's a real bargain. It's incredibly good. Especially when you can just keep escaping him, like a real late game situation where your opponent could have worked really hard and ended up a full 3 cards ahead, for example. Like, let's say your opponent has managed to have 3 counter spells in hand. The board's even, but you know what? They're going to win because they've got 3 counter spells, and then you rip Euro and you just throw him out there, and I guess they let that one resolve. Like, you're getting a card out of it either way, and then you're going to escape him and eat a counter, and escape him and eat a counter, and escape him and eat a counter, and now you're, at this point, you've depleted all of their resources. You're drawing cards in between. You know, if that first one resolved, you're getting potentially a land drop and a card draw. The life gain is not inconsequential. It's a really solid Magic card. I'm very skeptical about it reclaiming its previous peaks in terms of pricing. Right now the demand is going to be Commander and Legacy. The other formats ousting Euro. I guess part of it too, it's interesting now not being around as many people. The language of Magic isn't quite getting codified. Euro, I'm not actually sure how that would be said. Normally when you're around lots of other Magic players all the time, those things kind of get smoothed over pretty quickly when a card is released. But yeah, that came out just was that just a little while before the 2 weeks to flatten the curve? I think it was. Yeah, we had a full house for that pre-release. It was pretty great. The middle schoolers, some good times. One of the craziest judge calls I've ever had. Just amuses me to no end. My nephew was winning a match and his opponent got up and left the table saying he needed to go to the bathroom. Kid calls me over asking, he's like, I don't know what's going on. My opponent hasn't been here for 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, who's your opponent? And he points to the back of the room and he says, it's the kid hiding under the table over there. And the kid thought, he just was trying to run out the clock, just hiding under the table. I could not imagine that happening in an adult tournament. That's just something that could happen playing with the middle schoolers. Now we've got a Carpet of Flowers here for Matt and an Astrolabe for Peter. We'll see which one drop is more powerful. Carpet of Flowers seeing a ton of play lately, and the price of the cards skyrocketing. If you have random Urza's Saga bulk, dig those out. because those are like easily double digits now. I think they're like $15 or something at last glance. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that. They did get a mystery booster reprint. But that's going to potentially give Matt a substantial mana boost. But so far, Peter denying that. He's got a couple of Astrolabes and a Forest. They're going to be a little tough to tell the difference between these Modern Horizons full art Snowlands. They all kind of have like spires on them. And will Peter be able to stay clear of Carpet of Flowers? So far, yes. We've got a Bayou. So Carpet completely denied at this point. Sylvan Library again. And this card, I mean, it is a wrecking ball. The reprint in... what do we got here? A Dak Faden, all right. Dak can also do some work, especially with punishing fires. Discarding those does not feel very bad at all. And he has great synergy with replacing card draws. So the original Thieves deck, able to run... are we seeing a Force of Will on this? Force of Will back. Euro actually getting handled for real. And stealing an Astrolabe. Interesting. Not at all what I would have anticipated there. Peter has steered his mana base towards relying on those Astrolabes, so this could prove to be an interesting tactic from Matt, but we will see if this ends up being worth it as this unfolds. Currently, Peter up a game. Go ahead and mark that. Euro. Shows up, does his job, goes away, and is going to be looking to come back real soon. Though at this stage, this has actually been a pretty long match. I believe they're coming up to about 10 minutes left in the round, so from a timing perspective, Matt may need to really consider his options. He's going to need to win this really fast and then find a way to win a third game. Otherwise, this is going to be kind of a best-case scenario draw. Pyroblast discarded. He must have some serious goods in hand. We've got Hull Breacher coming down. And that just eats an Abrupt Decay right away. So no shenanigans there with Sylvan Library triggering, responding with Hull Breacher. Matt main phases it. Peter's got the answer already. And Hull Breacher shut down. Life gain from Euro. And Dak digs. He may not be around for long. A lot of mana being added, enabling for Euro on Matt's side. Now he previously exiled one. Now he's going to be bringing it back. Dak Faden could have significantly more play post-banning just because of Euro and punishing fire. Like, this is a shell that I think people are going to be examining. It's really not the worst thing in the world to be discarding cards that just have tremendous utility coming out of the graveyard, or just the ability to return. And Dak certainly fills the graveyard reasonably well. And, you know, the upside on being able to Dak your opponent while denying the card draw is pretty hilarious. When it reads your opponent discards 2 cards and you get 2 treasures. Yeah, it's not bad. All right, Dak has been cleared. Noble Hierarch making Peter's Euro better if it does turn into a Euro war. And Gilded Goose coming down. And this is feeling pretty hopeless for Matt. When you're playing something reasonably fair, you're facing down a Sylvan Library and an active Euro. I mean, you're just getting outdrawn so significantly. And Peter even able to convert some of this extra card advantage into extra damage, jamming a Noble Hierarch, so the prowess triggers, enabling Euro to hit for 8. Close things out a little bit faster. Another Green Sun Zenith. And it's going to be for 3. Grabbing a Leovold. Whew. That is the appropriate response there for Matt. I mean, just insurmountable at that point. Leovold would deny any card drawing, and Matt would have needed... It's difficult to conceive of what Matt would have needed there, but it certainly would have helped to have a lot of card drawing to filter and find a way out of it. But once Leovold's down, I mean, even trying to answer your opponent's cards, I mean, you're not really answering them. They're a problem because they're creating card advantage, and you're actually feeding into that when you target them thanks to Leovold. So that is another card that I suspect we will see a lot more of. I am looking forward to seeing the new meta relatively soon, but this is fun to see the last go around for these incredibly powerful cards. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.